So what I'm going to do is take you through our journey, transformation, and take you back quite some time when we started the Indirect Procurement Group at Kellogg back in 2007. I'm going to spend just a little bit of time on the first 3 years and really spend a bit more time on the past 3 years. So taking you through the steps of transformation, a little bit of a summary, 2007 to 2010, some of the lessons learned as a result of that journey, and then the past 3 years of our journey, where we are and where we're headed. So take a look at that, for Kellogg. We take a look at this in 4 basic quadrants and basically the times around this. So emerging procurement organization in 2007. There were people in the company at that time engaged in the indirect space, but it was really a mixed bag. There were people reporting into functional areas, people at the plants, but not really a central group. So very tactically focused, very few contracts in place, no compliance, frequent scope creeps. You can kind of get the picture. Over that first 3 years, there was a lot that was accomplished. There was market research and spend analysis that were put in place, a lot more discipline, alignment with business priorities, kind of get the picture. Where we are right now is we're progressing the journey, and we have our 3-year transformational journey. And one of the big objectives is to get us to 1.5 times the historical savings rate. Savings is always the key factor here. But really change our global operating model to become more centralized, identifying specific categories that will be strategically sourced from a central region. It could be the strategy and the execution, or just a strategy, and then there's going to be regional and local. So we're actually working through that organizational structure right now. That's what I've been doing for the past 6 months with a team of individuals. And the next wave of procurement transformation, supporting the business growth in emerging markets. Really where our growth is, from a dollar standpoint, it's still in the U.S. just because of sheer size, but from a 30–40% growth rates in places like Brazil and India, really our opportunities are primarily in Latin America, Eastern Europe, and in Asia, probably like a lot of your companies as well. I'm not going to spend much time on this. And you can kind of see, the progression in terms of supply assurance to value management, and really just focusing on the beginning, right goods at the right places, the buyer, and reliable and solvent from a supplier perspective. So we're really, from our perspective, in a lot of different places across indirect, which we define as MRO, capital, and logistics, the supply chain side for COGS, and in marketing, IT, and general professional services. So it's roughly half of our global spend. We have about $5 billion in indirect spend globally. Increased business value derived from spend. And one of the things that we've worked on recently, kind of give you an example of what that means to us, is programmatic ad buying. So we've dealt very, very deeply into the marketing space. We are in the media space, we are in the creative, and even programmatic ad buying is probably a whole different presentation, but it's pretty much how we're buying our space now, and we're a little bit ahead of the curve. It's rapidly evolving, but when one of the individuals from the marketing procurement team came to me and shared it with me, it was pretty enlightening. So this is not really about cost savings, it's about maximizing the investment. A trusted business advisor, we all talk about seat at the table, and that was part of our key strategy, getting a seat at the table, but it really didn't get us to the place where we wanted to be. Having a seat at the table at times just meant, well, you were there to hear our strategy, yet we want to be a trusted business advisor, so really impact strategy and really be the go-to person. So we have our leadership sitting on the most senior leadership around the company, and different kinds of relationships, but very, very strong and progressing. And innovative and flexible, so working with our suppliers, yeah, we use reverse auctions, yes, we take certain things or commodities out to bid, we treat certain suppliers certain ways, but we really focus on the suppliers that are going to help our business, and that's where we're trying to strengthen our relationships with them. So this is how we look at it, from the value to the business, and then to the stakeholders, really be a champion. So I talked a little bit about that you can be centralized, you can be mandated, you could have a seat at the table, but it doesn't necessarily translate to good results. even the strategic sourcing process that a lot of us follow. You know, if we follow this process in a very disciplined manner, it doesn't really mean it's going to be a good outcome. And also our stakeholders, frankly, really, you know, at the end of the day, don't care about the process unless it has good results. So, you know, what we're trying to do is embed our process, but embed our relationships. There's so many people in a lot of the functions that change. So even if you teach everybody the value that you have, the strategic sourcing process and your processes, if you don't build those relationships with the people, you know, it could be gone overnight. So a lot of focus on, you know, relationship building, but a lot of focus behind the scenes on the process piece. So the case study, and this is really the point here, is in 2007, I came into the company in April 2010. So back in 2007, one of the large consulting firms came in, did an assessment across the organization, and determined we could save about $100 million over 3 years. And the project was chartered and kicked off at the end of 2007. You could take a look at the profile, so about 48% of the indirect spend, or total spend is indirect. And marketing is our largest spend in the company, especially if you take out exchange-traded, the actual exchange-traded part of the commodities. And then the breakdown of the 6 different areas of indirect. We engage a third-party resource, globally Procure. Anytime you start one of these initiatives, senior management wants the money. And so there was an investment made with external resources to do a spend analysis, really identify the opportunity, bring in some discipline, but also bring in resources. And bring in bodies, experienced bodies and flexible bodies that, you know, could supplement your staff and really get going. So if, you know, the one thing of creating an organization, if you really try to staff up and bring all these tools and technologies in, yeah, that's quite a journey. And you know, the benefits will kind of wear off, or the C-suite will probably forget about why they, you know, started the journey with you, but just see, you know, the expenses that they're putting out. We have a mixed model resourcing structure. That's what was adopted then, and we still have it now. I'll tell you about how we changed that. And a comprehensive multi-wave sourcing plan. So nothing breakthrough. We did bring in a suite of technology. We did do a spend analysis. We had strategic sourcing and delivered a lot of money. So began the journey. Great unknown. So we started this thing that was looked at as a project, and that's really, really key, because that came back after about 3 years to almost kill this program being a project. It was called Project Silver. A lot of dead ends, a lot of roadblocks. Don't mind the cop to the far left there. And a lot of tough customers. You know, everybody's experienced this where you have stakeholders that really want your help. Sometimes they want your help when they get themselves in too deep, you know, need you to bail them out. Sometimes they really want your help at the beginning on certain things. But a lot of times the stakeholders don't want you involved in certain things, the ones that you really want to get involved in where there's probably the biggest business opportunity. But that never changes, you know, so I think it's what makes indirect procurement exciting. You know, I've led direct and indirect, and oversimplified, as we kind of know that, you know, even though forecasting is an optimum, you know, you have indices, you have specs, you have volumes, you have fewer stakeholders, you know, supply chain, if you're a manufacturing company, you've been there. Indirect is everything that's not. You know, it's kind of a wide open place. So it was quite a journey in those 3 years, covered that pretty quickly, but a lot of lessons learned. Cost savings were achieved. We actually blew through the $100 million. That was good and bad. Focused effort, value creation. So you put the money behind it, you do this, and you're going to get a lot of value out of it. A lot of confidence and morale boost for the team, because there were a lot of people that had been in the company a long time but really hadn't gotten the visibility and the credit for what they've been doing. But when the function was created, they did get that visibility. And then there was a crash course on strategic sourcing across the organization. Now the failures, I was thinking about the words that I would choose for this, but that's really what they were. So cost savings took precedence. It wasn't really a case that people didn't believe the cost savings. I had talked in an earlier session about having finance up front lay out the rules of the game and having finance really interact with the business unit finance organizations. Because once procurement speaks for themselves about the savings they deliver, it's not believable. So we try to make it a little bit more believable with finance people presenting it. But there was a lot of negativity around the cost savings. So, at the plant level specifically, in your MRO and the capital and the logistics side, where it was forced down their throats from their perspective, and the service wasn't there, and the lead times were too long, and the plants were suffering as a result of that. Limited stakeholder alignment, so we really didn't get really a depth of the relationship with our stakeholders. Lack of penetration from a regional standpoint and from a category standpoint. We launched this globally, yet we put people in Latin America and then pulled them out. Put people in Europe, so this third-party resource, and they didn't do anything. Everything, our primary spend is in North America, about 65%, it's come down about 62. So there was so much activity and so much savings that we kind of, at that time, kind of lost sight of, well, we had to get out of Latin America, and we didn't quite do anything in Europe, and Asia was never really on the horizon. And we didn't really have a great success stories in logistics, and marketing would let us in. But we saved well over $100 million. So if you really think about it, how much did we penetrate? We were still only in the core market. We're still only in, a portion of the overall spend. There was limited capability building, for all the benefits that this third party brought to us, which again, we still have them in place now. I've talked in the past about my main objective coming into the company after a couple weeks was getting rid of them. So about 10 months later, kind of changed the relationship and really, delivered more value out of that relationship based upon the second phase of the journey. But it was really all about the third party. What were they bringing to the table? They had their logos on every single presentation. They were really facing with our stakeholders. People really didn't even know about indirect procurement. It wasn't really an investment. It's two groups. Then it was viewed as a one-time project versus sustainable program. So this was a 3-year project. Every project comes to an end. Saved our 100 and some million. Now let's start scaling down. That's kind of what I came into. So actually the first couple weeks I was hearing all this good stuff. And I said, why am I here? And I heard about, well, all these opportunities. And I said, wow, this is still going to be a journey. But there was a lot of kind of push against making that bigger investment. And then there was ownership and accountability gaps. Is basically what I was talking about with the third-party resource. And again, I don't blame, yeah, go ahead. Yep. Yep.
And go out and say, we're going to save $100 million.
Uh-huh.
And then finance or C-suite or functions holding that.
Yep.
And say, there's good savings. We really save this. How do you get finance?
Yep.
Is that the real number? And then how do you change your goals for, a number that is now inclusive of leakage?
Well, yeah, I hear you. I don't agree with the statement about leakage, though. I don't agree with the statement about leakage because once procurement gets so involved in that discussion about budget cutting, how's your relationship with your stakeholders? How are you actually able to do your job? So we've put finance in that position. We give them all the visibility. And what we've done is we've broken out, with finance, taking a lead of what these savings dollars actually mean, what you could actually do with them. So capital, we're going to still spend 4.5% of our revenue in capital. So it's not hitting the bottom line, we're buying more stuff. Everybody knows that. On marketing, we are reinvesting. We are not cutting our marketing spend. On COGS, absolutely. MRO, some of the IT and logistics will go through PPV. We could actually see it. So when we save, they could see it hit the bottom line. On the P&L side, we give the visibility to CFOs in the business, and we arm them with, if you want to cut the budget, it's your decision. So, this isn't something like, it's not savings because we didn't have it hit the bottom line. We allow the business and a C-suite to make that decision. So we're going to get a little more aggressive in that, but really we're not going to be the ones that are going to mandate cutting the budgets. We can't. But we're going to provide them all the visibility to say where exactly can you cut them. Okay. It's just a difference. I mean, it depends on the company you're at. It's not really savings unless it's against last price paid or you can cut the budget and see it. Well, the reality is indirect, then you cut out half your spend because you just really can't track it that way. So much of the indirect spend is non-repeatable as well, so you get into all those mechanics. Yep. Interesting question. When the contract was done at the outset, there was a kicker on the back end if they hit a certain threshold. And what I found coming in, because that first part of the contract didn't expire until after I was in for a while, I saw a change in behavior. So towards the end, when we were getting that kicker, everybody's running for the money. So we were doing stuff in Latin America and Brazil. There was a lot of opportunities, but not massive opportunities, but we wanted to, for a PR standpoint, get in there, penetrate, build the relationships, emerging market. They didn't actually want to do that because it wasn't going to deliver a lot of savings. That was one of the major changes we did. Besides putting a different contract in place, we kind of put that front and center. I put it front and center with them, with their people, that it was driving bad behavior. So I think it's probably good at the very outset, but realize what it's going to do if you want a sustainable program. I mean, if you're going after the money, as long as you have the rules defined, go ahead, give them extra money. To do that, you'll get the money. So it was really a decision. Is this going to be more in a project? Are we going to, make more of an investment? And the investment wasn't in significant dollars, because actually over time, our investment all in the indirect group has come down. So all the dollars that have gone in, we've got a greater return, higher savings, better ROI, and actually the total cost, with technology, with people, with everything, has come down. So 2010, I got the opportunity to come in. We created a role. So before it was finance support, so the finance organization, we got a dedicated individual within the indirect group. And it was really important to get the right person, somebody that kind of understood indirect, was not having the direct mindset that everything was going to, 1 + 1 = 2. Doesn't always work that way with indirect. But a really good business partner, somebody that can partner with the finance organization across the company. Did a stakeholder and supplier feedback assessment. We assessed a third party. We got feedback from all the procurement people. We got feedback from hundreds of different stakeholders. We basically melded all that and saw, where are the gaps. And it wasn't a master plan on indirect. It really was different by some of those, the 6 different areas. A technology assessment and deployment. So we really looked at the technology that we were utilizing this third party for. Technology independence is ideal. We're not quite there. We do use the technology from the third party, but it works well for us right now. But really penetrate a little bit more on the technology. Reverse auctions for us is more of a tool. So we've put in strategic suppliers in place, or you could debate whether they're strategic, like say printing. So we've got printing suppliers in place. They went through a whole process. They compete on every single job through a reverse auction. So that's some of the ways that we actually use the reverse auction technology. Contract management tool, the spend analytics. We've even rolled out more recently a dashboard. So it's an online global procurement dashboard where it's pretty much live data, both from a qualitative and a quantitative standpoint. I'll talk a little bit about that in a couple minutes. New organizational model developed. I talked about getting the logo off all the presentations. That was a big deal. We're a marketing company. It's about branding. Somebody said something about sales. Really we could follow the best strategic sourcing process and do all the analytics and prove that it's savings, but you got to sell it. You got to sell it to people. So we were selling it as a Kellogg Indirect Procurement Group. And then the business objective creation alignment. So what we do, we're actually finalizing this right now. It's amazing, and I talked to some people that you're never finalizing your goals in the prior year. You're kind of in the current year and working through them. We have goals that cascade down, and we have global indirect procurement goals. And then each of the leads and their teams go back to the stakeholders and align, to the CIO, to the head of HR's goals, and then we put those in place. And we do have certain goals that transcend every region, every category for indirect. So I say people, process, technology. It really is all about the people. I think that with all of our experience, there are maybe some better companies than others, but there are a lot of companies in a lot of technology spaces and, consultants out there, and you hear the 7-step process or the 9. Once I heard the 16. It's pretty much the discipline that you utilize the process. It's the resources and the focus that you put behind the technology. And what fits into your culture too, because there's great technology, but I see that people just don't use it. They can't get the resources behind it. They don't know what it actually means. They don't define it up front. So the people is the roles and responsibilities and enablement versus empowerment. And I picked this up somewhere and didn't know it before, but I said, it's a pretty interesting comparative where empowerment is, to us, is, here's the budget, here's your resources, here's your technology, all this kind of stuff. You got everything you need. Good, I'm going on vacation. I'll be back in about 3 weeks. let me know how it turns out for you. Where enablement is, I'm with you. So we really have one group. You know, the strength of our team is not just the whole marketing procurement team, but the whole indirect group. And there's amazing that, you know, things that could be leveraged across the group. I mean, even though there are a different set of stakeholders and different industries that they source, there's so much commonality between all these areas of indirect that really can be leveraged. Process is an enabler. You know, the process before the technology, not getting the technology to define your process, you know, that kind of thing. And then we've taken a look at some of the technology that we've had define our process, and we said, well, that's not really working for us, so we got to take a step back. That were some of the things that we did in the first 3 years, put the tools out there and follow whatever the tools say or follow what the third party says. So we were able to adjust that in the last 3 years. And then easy to maintain, easy to set up and use. Somebody had talked earlier about the stakeholders. And there's a fine line between putting technology in place where your stakeholders are going to be thrilled with it, because you're probably not going to get everything that you need out of it, but finding some kind of compromise so that if it's easy to use and your stakeholders will go to it, that's the most important thing, but you've got to get out as much as you can, you know, data or compliance or whatever it is. People, so hire and retain the right people. The vast majority of the individuals in the indirect procurement group were there when I walked in the door. In fact, we've had 0 turnover in the largest region in the past 2 years outside the company. So within the indirect procurement group, we've had people come in from other functions, and we've had people from our group go to other functions. So that's pretty, you know, we were talking about that just recently. It's pretty interesting. I would say everybody wants to be there. Everybody's up for the challenge. There's been tremendous results. We're going through a massive transformation again, and everybody on the indirect side is pretty pumped about it. So, you know, that's really key. Patient, flexible, and makes tough calls early. So I think that first year obviously was the most difficult of changing things. Because if you think about it, that 2007 to 2010, huge success. I mean, by so many measures, everybody was feeling really, really good. And I wouldn't say I came in and cheered and said, look how great you did. You know, anybody that comes in says, hey, look at all this opportunity we have. So it was kind of balancing that. Consistent communication, enablement versus empowerment. We invested a lot in people. So we've used outside resources. We're doing some of that now, but we, in indirect, have done a lot internally. I learned this at another company where it's amazing what a couple $1,000s could get you. The last company I worked for, we didn't have consultants, we didn't have technology, we didn't have a budget, you know, as a mid-sized company. And one of the people on the team who's actually with us here at Kellogg said, why don't we buy some textbooks, college textbooks, we could download the training materials, we get some CDs, case studies and all this, and we get somebody in the group to deliver it. Or we can get different people, you know, delivering different chapters. And it wasn't getting that expert, that's that actual expert, it's more of how can you connect the group, and you're going to learn from each other. So we've done a bit of that. We've done finance, our finance business partners done training. We have CI people that know clean sheeting far better than I do. They've been leading this training, project management, leadership, technology. We've had our third party train everybody and retrain people on the technology. So we have a program management office, an individual that leads that. We have people all across the organization that actually come in and do the training. And a lot of that is from you know, survey feedback, individual performance reviews, and just what people think that we should deliver. So it's not a track. So it's not a very, very formal track that if you go through all these things, you're going to go to the next level if you do certain things, but it's really to give everybody additional skills. And probably the most important thing, and I won't embarrass her here unless she wants to stand up. No, she's not standing up, okay. Established a fund committee. Like I said, I'm not really a cheerleader, and I don't stop, you know, often enough to say, hey, what a great job. But we've got so many skills and different personalities in the group that one of the individuals said, you know, we should have some fun. I'm like, right, how can we do that? You know, a couple hundred here, a couple hundred there. We get, you know, do a potluck. It's just amazing what the group does. You know, we have a diversity inclusion committee. I actually lead that for global procurement. This is even different than that. There's all kinds of activities just go on. And it just keeps things fun because everybody's working really hard. Acknowledging and recognizing good work, availability of leadership. So this is not a place where anybody keeps you at an arm's distance and say, well, I'm going to, you know, cut you off if you fail. Everybody's really in it together. the goals show that, and just kind of the daily interactions say that too. And then the selling, I talked a bit about that as well. So the people is absolutely the most important thing. Yep. Yeah, so in my time here, I came in, led to North America, then we brought the Americas together, so all Latin America reported in to different managers. After 2 years, put it back into local leadership. We're going through a transformation. We're very connected into Europe, so a lot of the global efforts were driven out of North America because of resourcing. No structure really in Asia, so we put the third party over there and we do things from here. But we're actually reassessing that, so we're going to have more of a global organization. So it's a lot more connection. There was direct line reporting, but you know, any of the global categories were led by single individuals tied into the regions. So that it's a hodgepodge of kind of things. This was a training that all the leadership went through. A couple, you know, key points that came out. I think somebody said Gretzky said that. And sometimes when we go to Latin America, we talk about soccer to soccer ball. But you know, skate to where it will be. Definitely not where it was or where it is, but you know, planning ahead, you know, recovering to get a second chance. You got to be careful about, you know, drawing that line completely. You know, give yourself a little flexibility, especially dealing with the stakeholders. Small things create an avalanche. You know, even though we have a big strategic plan, it's these little things that people kind of jump onto, and it's amazing. We have a cash flow initiative last year, huge. Now we have a net income improvement discounted terms this year. Figure that one out, right? So we don't want to lose cash flow, but we want to go after discounted terms. You know, we've got one of the most junior people in a group, and we're targeting like 2%, 20, net 60. It's great. You know, she gets 3%, 30, net whatever. I don't know. But it was, you know, $20,000 or something, the spend. But she's going to take that, you know, those couple minutes. Like just little things like that. Say it kind of really gets lost in the shuffle, especially with how much money we have to save or deliver on our targets. But if somebody in the organization that's not even really on the horizon does that, it really gets a lot of attention. The last one is pretty important, understanding future threats. This is not an external, this is an internal. You know, stakeholders change, or, you know, the marketing procurement person's hearing something about general professional services. Again, a lot of this is relationship, a lot of this is people. You know, we could deal with the industry and risk and go through our process, but this is really kind of, you know, keeping a pulse on the leadership and kind of what's going on in the company so we can stay ahead of it. A lot of process. I'll give you a couple examples of processes. So discounted payment term program, I talked about that, but there's actually a tool, okay? So our finance business partner, he developed a tool, you know, just plug in a couple of numbers, it kind of tells you what is good for the company. Now I did tell him, I said, password protect that so somebody can only put it in the cell that you want. Nobody will break this. I said, trust me, if you put an Excel worksheet with all these formulas, it's going to be broken in a heartbeat. But I also told everybody, just kind of use your head too. Don't let a tool tell you exactly what to do. But it's kind of an innovative little thing where, you know, if you got some information, you could plug it into this and kind of tell you, you know, what direction to head in terms of your negotiations. We even gave them some tactical, you know, go for the extended term before you ask them if money is more important, you know, those little things. But really the finance business partner kind of leads that. Improved knowledge retention. So we have a SharePoint site and we use it. It's not perfect, but a lot of collaboration through the site. The thing is with our SharePoint, I don't know if anybody else has SharePoint, it's not like touchy-feely, you know, it's not, I don't know if anybody can kind of relate to that. So we also have another dashboard. You can kind of link through the site. It's just really nice, and you click in and you see these pictures and all. That's where all our metrics are. All the document retention and some of the collaboration goes through that. So we use a couple technologies to share information and then show the results. Savings reporting tool, so it's really about visibility. So we do have a set of rules and visibility where if any of the controllers, CFOs want to drill down, they can actually drill down to every single cost center, every single project, and where these dollars are actually flowing through from the savings from the group. So I like to show this, that This was pre-transformation, so this is when I walked in the door. So it was, the marketing, logistics, capital, general professional services, MRO. These were all the different indirect, even though it was an indirect procurement department, they all operated independently. And so what happened was, whether it was a code of conduct or supplier diversity or SAP or meetings or reporting or supplier surveys, all those different things that your shared services, COE, finance, whatever, come at you with, what happened to us is whoever was available, these groups or these people were able to get a hold of and say, hey, I want to talk to you about supplier diversity, what you're doing, we should do this, and then relying on that individual to spread it across the entire group. It was really a challenge because everybody's got such priorities, then they became our priorities or kind of interfering with the strategy. So what we did is created the PMO. So it's really an individual, just an individual, that we have a clearly defined strategy, and then that individual works with all these individuals on their projects or their programs and kind of disseminates it into the group and sees how it aligns to strategy. Real basic, but we have to keep really disciplined where when it comes to other groups, they redirect it to this individual. So, we can communicate appropriately and we can actually deliver better results. But in the past, it was a free-for-all. But it made a huge difference for us. And basically, the technology, right in the middle is the indirect procurement dashboard. I'll show you a little picture of that. But we have sourcing tools, contract management tools, and they're not the best. So, for example, we have the tools are through this third party, and when I came in, there was no trigger on contracts, meaning that everybody said, I have to extend my contract here by 2 months to give myself time to source. Like, aren't you planning, ahead? Well, there's no trigger in the system. Why not? I mean, shouldn't that just be a basic thing? Then you talk about, well, are all the contracts loaded and who loads them? Well, it's legal, and are they putting in the right information? So, some basic things. You have this tool that can really work, maybe with a couple tweaks. So we focused a lot on that. The financial reporting tool, analytics, the SharePoint, I talked about all these things. But again, the most important thing is the people, because we have this technology like SharePoint out there, and sometimes I've gone out there and, all the information's 6 months old, or this one area hasn't been updated in a year. It's people keeping it refreshed and also keeping it in the right place. Sometimes it gets pretty wide open. You don't want everything out there. This is our dashboard. It's kind of pretty, Didn't look like that through SharePoint. So this is what we relied on our third-party resources to do. So we have financial metrics like cash cost savings. That's the total, regardless of what you take to the bottom line, whether it's overhead or P&L or capital. That's the total savings. Then we have P&L cost savings in the middle, and these are just illustrative, not actual numbers. We have cost avoidance. In a prior life, I always thought cost avoidance was important. We don't go to our executive leadership team and talk all about the cost avoidance. But the thing is, talking about the incentives back to the third party, we had some major inflation in logistics. So, right, we didn't want to go after that because we weren't going to get savings. We didn't go after that. We're going to have, tens of millions of dollars in increase. So we do want to have visibility into the group that, some people say it's part of your job, but you can go way beyond just doing your job and have a good impact to the company, keeping budgets flat or managing inflation. So we do show that. Overhead budget, naturally we work, within our budgets. Cash flow improvement, so that was a measurement in terms of just extended terms. We've got a net income improvement effort this year, so it's a fine balance. Tail spend management, so by the 80-20 rule, we have $2 billion worth of tail spend. I don't really define it exactly like that because a bit of our tail spend we go after, and some of our bigger spend we haven't, but it's very, very significant. So we've tried out a company. Didn't quite work for us. I think it was more because of our processes internally, of getting to an average order size and getting in front of the requisitioner before they actually commit. But it's a high volume reverse auction play, so we're constantly looking at how we can go after the tail spend effectively. Supplier diversity, we have huge goals there. Code of conduct, this is a global initiative. And then on the bottom are the qualitative, the people side. So training, so basically show all the trainings that are available, have people sign up for them. And it's pretty amazing. So we do it from indirect right now. It's going to be more of a global training program in the future. But we have people in other functions and on the direct side participating in the indirect training. Safety minutes, diversity inclusion. not to be confused with supplier diversity. A lot of efforts in here. And then people profiles. So on the bottom right, we have literally, I don't have Facebook, but I guess it's kind of like Facebook, a little more than LinkedIn, you know, people's picture, contact information. You can update it, you know, little sports and hobbies and all. But really, the key thing is anybody around the world can kind of click in there and say, you know, Joe Smith, what is this person I was talking to on the phone or got an email? What does he look like? Or, you know, how can I find somebody that knows something about capital? Even though we do get together once a year in an indirect meeting, this is a great way to stay in touch too. So this is pretty cool for us. You know, besides actually being able to, you know, see the real data. And in the top, up here, this is K&A, Kellogg North America. So you can actually drill that down global or by region, and then by each of the 6 categories to see the numbers kind of roll through. Now, they're looking to go to the cloud, so it can be better. This is pretty good, so we're going to see how that works out for us. The real important thing is just making sure it's live data. We got crazy, we're not a marketing company, did I say that? We're a finance company. So yeah, we have crazy, like I've never seen before, the discipline and the data required for all this. So yeah, we can get information by every supplier, project, cost center around practically the globe. I think it's overkill, but you know, it's hard to question. So we basically have data coming from suppliers, data coming out of our systems for an analytic standpoint. It goes through this algorithm, and then it's cleansed and, you know, comes back once a month, too. So we have the data, yeah. We use offshore resources for that. See, when the Project Silver was started, there was a $1 billion commitment to the street by Kellogg to save, and it went way beyond procurement. And so the robustness that needed to be there in terms of really delivering the savings started there. So they said it's there, we'll continue. It hasn't really let up, so yeah, we have a pretty robust process. You know, obviously on the direct side, it's coming all out of the system on PPV, so it's pretty clean. So we talked about this, you know, the roles and responsibilities, the alignment of goals, capability program, and the celebration of success. We're fully aligned with our stakeholders, but again, stakeholders constantly change. We've had people staying around for a while in procurement. But when you look around the company, you know, there's new people coming in with new ideas, so it's a constant education process. And sometimes we take a step back and take 2 steps forward. We're fully involved in strategy development. That's a little bit, wrapping up here now? All right, let's see what else I got for you here. All right, let me just give you the results, okay? So this is a 2007 to 2010 average savings per year. This is 10 to 12, and this is our 13 goal, okay? It's a nice progression. Now you can slice and dice that a lot of different ways. I chose that way. It looks pretty good. You know, it's all about selling. Not to pick on the ingredients or packaging, but they're not really important for us here. So it's all about indirect. But the other thing that's really important here for us is this. Somehow I jumped onto the ROI. Every dollar in, how many dollars in return? So focused in on the Americas, not that Europe and Asia Pac aren't doing really well, but just wanted to give you a little bit. Right here was the change for Latin America. Okay, so this is end of 2010. So right in the middle of 2010, Latin America reported in, and we did some major changes to jump that up. Kind of flatlined a little bit, but North America, our most, you know, our biggest region, one that's had the biggest support and all, we continue to go up here. The other thing is year-over-year savings growth, and the other things are improvement in working capital, talking about $60 million. Year-over-year improvement in supplier diversity spending, 7% year-over-year. Savings as a percentage of spend, that's a good metric. Total spend, we've seen an increase. You get into this impacted, impactable, what you've gone after. I mean, you can slice and dice that every different way. We go on total spend, so it's low single digits. Increase in supplier retention, so a lot of the suppliers are keeping the business, and then 0% turnover. And that's a number of the team members from Mexico. We had our last indirect meeting. So any questions with no time?